All right, we have Jeff Willmore on. Jeff, good morning.
Thank you. Good morning to you, Eric.
Thank you. What time is it for you right now? You're in Arizona, right?
9:09 a.m.
Okay. I always get confused where Arizona time is because you have that weird time zone, right?
It's half the year Pacific time, half the time Mountain time, because they don't have daylight savings time here.
I think that's how the whole country should be. Just fuck daylight
Uh,
savings time. It's so
yeah, yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah, yeah,
There have been
probably.
some states that have tried to get rid of it.
I think it doesn't. Indiana has some.
Do they?
I think so,
Okay.
or something like half of Indiana has, or something. But
That's worse.
yeah,
Could
yeah,
you
that's
imagine just
true.
driving 5 minutes and you're in the next zip code and you're in a different
Yeah,
time zone now?
yeah, yeah.
At least keep it consistent.
That's right. That's right. I always,
So yeah.
I've been joking with my kids since they were young. When we'd be on a road trip or something, we'd cross the state line, and I'd say, "Don't you feel different now? Can't you tell?"
My dad used to do
No,
that to us when we were
really,
kids.
really.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much is created in our mind.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the Arizona, California desert. There's no difference,
There's no difference. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you live 1 foot there versus here, it sure is different. Yeah,
Yeah. So what have you been up
yeah.
to?
Oh, wow. It's a big
I feel like you're
question.
always up to a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I like to engage with interesting, committed people such as yourself, and they tend to be up to things too, and I get into things. So I think currently I have a couple colleagues, Richard and Eric, and we've been formulating an offer in the
Okay.
business world to allow founders and leaders to align their team with their vision. And we've done several test cases, and we're now just finalizing the website to launch that. So that's been a great thing to
Now, is
you know
this a
I
different website than the one you have right
yeah,
now?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, very different.
Is this a different
Uh,
program that you're doing, or is it the
Different,
same?
yeah, different engagement. It's customized for the company,
Okay.
um, but it's all part of my vision of connecting people's heart with business, um, so they
No.
can live true. So
What is your background that you got into this world of business and personal development and you
that's a good, yeah. I come from a family of entrepreneurs.
Okay.
My uncle was a architect slash contractor, and my dad has had his own consulting company, but then was partners with my uncle, and
What kind of
and they
consulting did he do?
he did management consultant. He was one of the first management consultants in Washington D.C. He like helped found the industry there. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, I
It's got
know,
to be tough
I know.
working out with those people.
Uh, you know, he loved it and he
Yeah.
was great at it. And I think it was different at the time. That was
Mhm.
in the days of Kennedy. Um, he started in the city as the chief of staff for a U.S. senator
Okay.
in the 50s after grad school, and then started this consulting firm. And I think he just had the pick of his clients because what he was doing, no one else was really doing,
Right. And you already had some name
So
recognition for what his
yeah,
job
yeah,
was before. Okay, interesting.
yeah, yeah. But so I had that business part already there. In fact, my dad and my uncle always had a house project that they just had their sons work on, that they treated as a money loser.
Okay.
They weren't even planning on making. They just, which was smart because there were times we had to rip the roof off and redo it because we'd put the shingles upside down. But the primary purpose of it was keep their sons busy and out of trouble and teach us how to work hard. But I also, through both he and my mom were, they split up when I was young. She was a teacher, a Montessori school teacher. I had the second ever Montessori school in Northern Virginia.
Oh, cool.
And
I was a Montessori kid in preschool.
oh yeah.
Loved it.
She's a brilliant woman, Maria Montessori. I mean, really.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a shame so many of her concepts have been totally bastardized. I don't know about the rest of the world, but here in the U.S. But anyway, so but when she met a guy back from Vietnam, great human being, and they remarried, been married now for 50 years. But we marched. He was one of the leaders in the peace movement in the late 60s. So we grew up marching in that. And my dad was into the civil rights stuff. So we were involved in that. And so I grew up with this highest ideal, I think, infused in me was to contribute and make a difference socially, worldwide. So, and then somewhere, I think my first ambition as a kid was I was going to be a politician.
Okay.
I grew up with the Kennedy. At least, my first hero was Robert Kennedy. I don't know why. It's just he was. I was 8 years old. He was running for president, but but then I got into, I think, just as a shy, self-conscious kid, and I got into meditation when I was a teen, and I got into Buddhism and Zen and kind of reading more stuff, and then I found my way into a landmark forum. I guess at the time it was Werner Erhard and Associates, and opened up the whole world of transformation. And
when was that? When was that for you? What year?
That was 1976. I was 16.
Okay.
My dad had just done it, and it was, he'd had a horrific back injury, sitting at a red light, rear-ended by a drunk driver, and it left him with 5 herniated discs, all at once, like, just ruined. Couldn't walk most days, and pain pills, all that. And he walked into this S training thing and came out without his crutches.
Wow.
And we were like, what the hell happened to you? And he said, well, I realized I was being a victim. And I was like, what do you mean? You were a victim. He said, no, that was all a big story.
Yeah.
I was like, what the? And he says, you just got to do it. So anyway, it's been a love affair ever since. The whole world of transformation and freedom and liberation and getting outside of our own biases and blind spots. And so, and I've always wanted to combine it with business. So for just because.
And when did you go from doing S to leading programs?
After college, I started a company with my twin brother where we were buying failing companies. And we're not all that successful at it. I mean, we had really struggled to get any access to capital, so, and we mostly didn't know what we were doing, but I was young and single, and we were making some money, and that was great. And when S transitioned to the forum, I went to do the forum, the first 3-day forum. And I decided sitting in there that I was going to find out what it took to be a form leader. And so I totally switched careers. My brother and I came out of it and told my brother. And so we sold our businesses, and I started the whole process to get trained to do that, and did that for 21 and a half years.
Oh, how
Yeah.
long did it take for you to for you to make that decision you wanted to do that to be actually becoming a forum leader?
Let's see, that was 1991, 4 years.
4 years. Okay.
Yeah, so I guess about three of that was training, you know. Um, One was, I mean, the first year was winding down the businesses and doing the rest of Landmark's curriculum and so on. And
So
then I was
you
off.
were
And
all in from the beginning.
yeah, I was one of those straight line people. I think for many people, the process of being a form leader is a circuitous thing, and
You were like, this is what I want to do.
yeah, I was a straight line. Yeah.
And did you know how uncommon it was for the amount of, because isn't there a statistic that the amount of people who say they want to be forum leaders who actually make it into the forum leader body is pretty low?
Yeah, it's really low. I mean, there were always people who'd come to me Sunday night at the end of the forum and say they wanted to do what I was doing. And um, I don't know if that's uncommon. I mean, I was a kid. I was certain I was going to play in the NBA. So,
Right. But you weren't, I think the difference though is you weren't winding down your business in order to go play in the NBA.
yeah, true,
I mean, you're
true.
literally
Yeah,
winding down
that's
your
true.
business in order to become a forum leader.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Once you start the process, there's no guaranteed success of
No,
the
right.
outcome. Yeah, that's right. I know that from, yeah. Yeah, I ended up being accountable for training the leaders at Landmark, and it was about a 50% success rate through it's a pretty rigorous training intensive is what we call it, you know.
What's
Um,
the training like when you're actually training to be a forum leader?
well, let's see. It's put together as a intensive, so you're in lots and lots and lots and lots of forums observing mostly,
So
and you do lots.
you're in the back, like you're not
Yeah,
sitting with people.
you're in
Okay.
the back, and you debrief on the breaks with the leader, and you interact with participants who have questions or who are struggling or are up against it or who knows what.
Uh-huh.
And then you do lots and lots of study. Uh,
What do they have you study?
the material.
Okay.
I mean, you've got to, and the study includes lots of practice delivery and practice interactions. So you set up mocks and practices, and and I mean, you got to live and breathe the material. So um,
And what metrics do they determine? Like, okay, now we're gonna let you lead landmark forums. Who
they
determines that? What on what metrics is that determined?
it was uh, basically one, which is, and before me it was Steve, and then when it was me, it was me. So someone would go through the training intensive, and the various leaders who were certified to train would sign people off and various parts of delivering the forum,
Hmm.
because the the senior leader had watched them deliver it successfully and deal with the interactions and so on, but that's still not leading the whole thing. And
Yeah.
then it comes to what we called a check ride, just like a flight check ride, where they walk up solo and they do the thing solo, and I would be in back, and they've got to deliver the result. And the result is that the overwhelming majority of people in the room walk out with a transformed view of life.
Yeah.
Um, so it was a very highly involved, intense, and at the end, it was a um, assessment and judgment on the part of someone who was a master at it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you did this for 21 years,
yeah,
and then walk me through. So what had you transition out of the farm leader body into what you're doing now?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'd had this dream for a while of melding the ontological and phenomenological work we were doing at Landmark for individuals.
Now, just for people listening, explain what you mean by ontological and phenomenological.
Yeah,
What do you mean by that?
really simply. So, ontology is the being part of us human beings. So, if you think about it, we're always being something. And it's the part, given we're always being something, we we take it for granted. It becomes we're not given the language to access being. Um, Probably the best it gets is we've grown up in the psychological era, so we have language that accesses feelings and emotions and thoughts. But you know, we don't say things like "I'm being angry." We say
Mhm.
"I'm angry."
Right.
Or "How are you doing?" "I'm being happy right now."
Right.
We tend to describe ourselves as a object,
Yeah.
and that language doesn't give us access to the very core of our essence, which is the being part. So anyway, that's the
Are there
ontology.
languages that have access to that kind of language?
You mean
Like, are
what?
there languages where
Like
the ontological realm can be experienced through just the normal syntax?
Japanese or Spanish? You mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
So
certain tribal languages, or
yeah, not there may be a word or two in a particular vocabulary like that
hmm
accesses love more and more in the being sphere,
yeah.
but overall, no.
Interesting.
So yeah. So that's part of the real genius and magic of the work Landmark's done and what Warner started. And there's others in the field, but what he put together to bring it to the ordinary person like me, is just brilliant. So, um, and because we haven't been given a language to access being, we end up stuck with various ways of being. So, for example, up until I did the S training way back, I was a very shy person. I was stuck being shy. I would have spent the rest of my life being shy.
Yeah.
There was no. It was that's one of the ways I describe myself. Almost like if you cut me open, you'd find shyness inside, which obviously, when you think about it, is crazy
Yeah.
because no, it's none of that being stuff is in there. So anyway, that's the ontological part, and the phenomenological part. That's the philosophy of the way things exist for us. So, and it's pretty fascinating. I mean, I think you and I could be a student of phenomenology for the rest of our life, and you'd never run out of the wonder and the inquiry, just because everything occurs for us differently.
Yeah.
And so, working with a CEO who's got a particular issue they're dealing with in their business, and yet the way you see the issue is different the way I see it, different the way they see it. Um, so anyway, that's to bring that to business was a dream I had. And so that's what I left to do, as well as really wasn't planning on leaving. It was just going to live as a dream, but I had a epiphany in a dream one night, in the middle of the night, one of those. I haven't had a lot of those in my life, but I don't know if you have any of those where I wake up where suddenly a number of things have come together. And it was the same year, this is 3 years ago, my daughter had just left for college.
Mm-hmm.
And I was dealing with that. I'd missed most of her life because I've been traveling and working so much. Um, and I saw the future with my son, who was 12 at the time. It was going to be the same thing. And then that combined with, I had lots of things I wanted to do with my wife, and I was sitting there at 3 a.m., bolt awake, realizing, dude, you're just bullshitting yourself. You are not going to do that stuff. From I wanted to spend a month in the summer in Europe with her, and I just, have been in this love affair with this woman. And I was not going to do it because I was just working, traveling, working. And that was a Saturday evening night, and I resolved I was going to change my life. I was going to change my lifestyle. And that work hard lifestyle was part of what I wanted to contribute to the world of business. That was an outdated model. That was old. That was, that whole, working hard is a necessary skill.
Yep.
But as the answer, man, you're going to be at the end of your life saying, what the hell did I do with my life? No one's at the end of their life saying, I wish I worked more.
Right.
There's at the end of their life saying, I wish I hadn't worked so much. So anyway, that was, whatever that was, signal from God, the universe, a coming together of spirit, something.
Mm-hmm.
So I called up Monday morning and I resigned. Spent several months turning things over.
How did they take that when you just call and say, hey, I'm not doing this anymore? It's not that.
Well, it was difficult because
Was it that quick though? Did you just make a call and be like, hey, not doing this anymore?
Yeah. It was difficult because these are people I highly respect and they respect me, and
you've been doing it for 21 years.
And the
so
and the
this must have been out of nowhere for them, right?
Yeah. And the relationship we have as form leaders, I likened it like you were in the foxhole together. So it was our relationship was as brethren, real true partners. So it was difficult, like a breakup, but I just wasn't going to be true for me to stay and experience sacrifice. That would be dishonoring what I was doing,
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for
how did they take
asking
it?
all that. They're it was difficult personally, but they're grown-ups.
Okay.
Listen, no one is a indispensable. We like to think we are.
Yeah.
But people move on, and landmarks fulfilling a future and a vision of their own, and it wasn't based on me being there. So,
right.
And I'm still I'm on the sidelines cheering them on and doing my own version of what they're up to,
Yeah.
So
Cool.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
now tell us a little bit more about what you're up to. You briefly shared about it at the beginning, but what does that look like? What you developed?
Yeah. Well, the first thing was I'd had this vision of offering something to professionals and business owners that would give them a way out of the work your ass off your whole life trap, without sacrificing success, and without thinking about it. We're in the world of business. I've termed it a force field.
Mm-hmm.
And like a force field, no matter what you do, the force field's pushing against you. So every industry has its own unique force field, but then there's the force field of business in general, which once you get in business, you're in the force field, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I recently had this conversation of the force field of healthcare with a couple, a group of doctors who manage departments at hospitals, and some hospitals CEOs. And man, incredible when they can start to put words to their experience. Yeah, I mean, it's just, and they can actually start to see, oh wow, it is like a force field, and we're trapped in this world that we didn't create.
Yeah,
And
it's funny. I have conversations with my dad about this. So he runs one of the largest children's hospitals in the country, Cohen's Children's in New York. They're part of the Northwell system, and so we've talked about things of employee burnout and the conversations that especially the new medical students graduating to become doctors and what they have to deal with, and it's a big issue for a lot of management and figuring out ways to make it more tolerable and enjoyable in the workplace. So and he's a foreign graduate, and so we have conversations like this, and so
well,
you should talk to him at some point. I think
I'd love to.
Yeah.
Love to. I mean, this is one of the things. I mean, I wanted Landmark to offer this, but I mean, there's so many things they're busy doing.
Yeah, and I think we're I think sometimes the most successful entrepreneurs they kind of know the limits of their own offering.
Yeah.
And so it's I think from the outside it's very easy to say, well, this company should do this and this company should do this. And right, and I actually very much respect personally. I very much respect when I'm talking to an expert and they say, I only focus on this thing.
Right.
And this thing is valid. You can talk to one of my partners or colleagues who only focuses on that thing. And I've had better experiences with people not trying to be jacks of all trade. Right. And I actually see this completely abused in the personal development world, where you have a coach, right? And they'll say, that you work with them, and you're actually getting some results, right? And you get some business results or some results with public speaking or, whatever it is, right? But then they don't stop and they say, well, then let's go work on this psychological issue. It's like, you're not a trained psychologist.
Right.
Maybe you should go to a trained psychologist for this, or maybe you should go to someone who only specializes in confidence issues, or, whatever it is.
Right.
And you could actually be destructive towards people if you don't actually know what you're doing, and now you're just giving glorified advice. So, I think Landmark, to give Harry credit, I think they're very, very intensely focused on their offering, in their world,
this is what we do. Yeah.
Right. This is what we do. And if you want to do something else, that's great, but that's not what we do. And it works for them.
Yeah. 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 Well said. Yes. So I wanted to create something that would give the business leader, the professional. I wanted to be for people who were already in a chosen career, who were already successful at it. And to give them a way out of the force field where they could both expand success, because I found for many successful professionals and business people, there's real ambition there.
But see, you do have the skill set where you probably could work with someone who didn't know what they wanted to do, but you're not expanding your business to do that. You only want to work with
That's
people who
right.
are. So
That's right.
there's
Yeah,
an example right there. And I
exactly.
could say,
Very
well, why
good.
don't you work with my friend who's in
Yeah,
transition right now?
yeah,
You're
he's
good at
trying to
that.
figure out what they should do with their life.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So this is for already successful professionals and business leaders too. And it's a year long. And I
Hmm.
purposely wanted to step out of the quick intervention, breakthrough, transformation model
Hmm.
that really landmark est started. And now you have Tony Robbins is probably the most popular
Yeah.
model of it, and many, many others. So I wanted to intentionally step away from that, not to be different from a sales point, but from the perspective of um, to have something actually stick. You know,
Yeah.
I came across this, and the biology world is pretty well known. Umberto Maturana, who has been one of the fathers of cognitive science in his way. And he asked this question, was stuck with me for years, which was, how does an organism evolve?
Hmm.
How does an organism change? And his answer was very simple, because it's how evolution works. It's a combination of time. So it's got to happen over time, and involves a particular environment that the organism interacts with
Hmm.
over time. So reoccurrence, time, and environment. And if the organism doesn't, um, if they don't reoccurrently interact with the environment, then they don't evolve. They end up dying. So I wanted to design something that looked at it from that perspective. Like, so what could a already successful, ambitious, committed professional probably, and also what I find that people that are in this place are very often pretty well down the path of enlightenment. They've done a lot of self reflection. They've done a lot of work on themselves. They've unloaded a fair amount of baggage.
Yeah.
So what would allow that person to evolve, to be a new kind of leader, to do business in a new way? Um, and from a much bigger perspective for me, that I don't talk to a lot of the people in my course about it, but from my perspective, I see business and commerce and the various leaders of business and commerce as having a unique place in the world currently, maybe always, but definitely currently, in terms of shaping the future. It just, at least how it seems to me, is so much of the governance throughout the world has forfeited their kind of authority to lead, and it's really us. And I think it's us more than popular movements. It's us, like the various leaders of companies and businesses, who are going to innovate our way to handle some of these long-term issues that humanity's been dealing with, from climate change to disease to poverty and so on.
Yeah.
So that's for me, that's really, really important. Um, so I put this thing together that's a year long, that's got a healthy dose of study in it, interaction with their peers in unique ways, where they end up retraining their brain to see the marketplace differently,
Hmm.
and see themselves in the marketplace differently, and see new opportunities and possibilities, and So yeah, it's been fun. It's great.
What was the process in designing a program like this?
It was, I shouldn't say it was harder than I thought, because I'd done enough design at Landmark to know and people who think design's easy should sit in front of a blank page. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Or people who think paintings, any kind of true creation. Um, so now I was fortunate enough, I'd been thinking about this thing for close to 15 years, because I ran into a lot of successful professionals and business people like this over the years through the forum, and I could see the suffering of trying to fulfill my important life commitments, especially family,
Hmm.
family, well-being, connection, health, while at the same time I'm a slave to my commitments to my company. And that battle, which is often talked about now, of I think currently the popular phrase is life balance, which is, I think, is just bullshit.
Total horseshit.
No, yeah, total.
I just
I
just
mean,
had a conversation this weekend in the program I led, and then we had a whole thing on work-life balance. That was fun.
mhm, good, good. So, so how would someone like that align this very important thing in their life, their business, their
Hmm.
profession? How would they align it with their most important life commitments versus I've got to sacrifice important life commitments?
Yeah.
Um,
Do you find it's for people who are like very, very successful and have a horrible lifestyle? Are they like the most screwed psychologically?
huh,
Where what I mean by that, it's actually like one of my greatest fears in life is, so I don't know, we've talked about Charlie Munger before,
yeah, yeah,
offline, and he always talks about this principle of inversion, right? Where he'll say, if I knew where I was going to die, I would never go there, or right, if I want to be happy, do avoid things that make me unhappy.
yeah,
Or most people do the opposite. They just start seeking things for pleasure, seeking things for happiness, as opposed to avoiding things that would not have that
hmm,
way. So actually, after my advanced course and the whole conversation around what game are you playing in life and all that, um, I decided I'd play a game where I avoided anything that contributed to a lifestyle that I didn't want,
hmm,
which at the beginning was horrible because it started making me say no to like literally everything, even like normal things that, like, why would you not? I remember my dad tried getting me um, some gig at JP Morgan at like, and I was like 21, and any kid would dream of doing that, and I turned it down. My dad's like, "Are you an idiot? Like, why would you turn it down?" I'm like, "Well, I don't. That's not even. I didn't want to get
right,
successful. I don't know if it was JP Morgan, but it was a big bank, and I didn't want to get
right,
successful
right,
there and then get trapped in my success. So what I mean is, if I feel like I'm lucky where I did a lot of this work when I was 20, so I didn't have much life experience to unwind. I could kind of create from this mostly blank slate to begin with.
yeah,
But if you're like 55 years old, a successful executive, you've built all this shit, but it's actually not trapped you, and you want to have this great lifestyle, meaning that you might have to let go of some of this, that psychologically could be very, very difficult. Like, I don't know
yeah,
if I'd be able to do that. That's
yeah.
what I mean by that. Is it harder for someone like that psychologically, or is there ways to do it where you don't have to give up a lot of stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't looked at it that way. I think,
It's funny. That's the only way I've
first of
looked at
all, what's that?
it. That's funny. It's almost the only way I've looked at it.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, it's like my
Um,
driver. It's like I'm so scared of that. I just want to avoid that at all
right.
costs.
Well, one of the questions we start the very beginning of the course with is, at the end of your life, what do you want to say your life fulfilled?
Hmm.
Um, and and obviously there's no trite answers allowed, nothing superficial allowed. And then we get into where would you look to answer that question, and it's not, by no means is it the right true enough point, but it's the one I've picked. I mean, at the end of my life, if I want to be able to say that I fulfilled what my life was about, I better first of all get clear what the hell is it,
Yeah.
and then I've got to deal with and organize, okay, well, what is inconsistent? And there ends up being a lot. And one of the phrases that became popular in the very first course that I said to someone who happened to be a founder of a hedge fund, he was about $500 million at the time, and he was in the process of spending a lot of money to buy out some partners that it turned out he hated his hedge fund because, I mean, he loved parts of it, and what the strategies he put together and so on, but the whole business part and with these partners and manage the back end. And, and I said to him, I said, living true isn't cheap. So I don't know if I think what you said, I think for some people, what you said, yes. Other people, the idea of getting a fresh start is unbelievably freeing and liberating.
Interesting.
It was for me.
Yeah.
Which kind of surprised me. I mean, when I left a career I was absolutely loved, I gave my heart and soul to it, and I loved everything. I loved the people I worked with, and yet there was no looking back, there was no grieving, there was no and it really surprised me how liberating it was to start from nothing.
Yeah.
Um,
I think you are, at least what it sounds like to me, you are still fulfilling, what you've committed your life to. It's just a different expression of that.
True.
And you could even say maybe even you're honoring yourself at an even deeper level now with what you're doing.
Yeah. At least from what emerged.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like in the space you're in your life now.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I think is important, right? Where even if something is an authentic expression, maybe in 20 years it isn't anymore. And to be able to check in with yourself and be honest with yourself, like, okay, is this still how I want to express my intention in the world?
Right.
And it's not anymore.
Right.
It is time to move on. And then staying there and getting attached to that is sort of the new trap.
Yeah. Success is a huge trap. In fact, I've come to the conclusion, even more so for the people I work with, than failure is. I mean, failure is a big one too. We mostly have a really disempowering relationship with failure, and the shame of it is we don't learn from it as much as we need to.
Failure.
Failure.
Yeah.
I mean, that there's a great book on that. I don't know if you've seen it. Black Box Thinking. Did you ever check that out?
No, haven't. Yeah.
Fabulous book. So just really briefly, this
Black Box Thinking.
Oh yeah. Very, very well done. And it's all about having a relationship with failure, which the industry he picks, which in his study has the most powerful relationship with failure, is the aviation industry.
Oh, yeah. I have heard of this book, Matthew Side.
Yes, exactly.
The Surprising Truth About Success. Okay, yeah. I've seen snippets of this.
And then all the way to the other extreme, one of the worst is the healthcare industry where they cover up and they hide and they justify and they explain. And, the thing with aviation is it's all out in the open and they do the public hearings. And the result is you've got the safest form of travel ever known. And it just gets safer every year
Yeah,
because
just
every
reminded me,
yeah,
the last time I visited my dad's hospital, they had this like scoreboard it kind of looks like a scoreboard in the hallway, and I'm like, what do these numbers represent? And my dad said, well, it's how many days someone's like, I don't remember the exact medical term, but it was like someone had a bed infection, right, where it's like you have to turn someone over,
yeah,
and they pride themselves on it being a very long time between each infection. So it's like a way to keep track. And if someone actually does get sick because someone wasn't turned over or they pissed themselves or whatever it is, it like gets displayed in this hallway so that everyone can see it in debrief.
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
not covering anything up.
Yeah, I think there's more and more examples of that in select hospitals,
Hmm.
which is really good news. Um, and it'll be, when it becomes industry wide, where errors. I mean,
Have
you
you
can
done work
understand.
with hospitals before?
What's that?
Have you done work with
Uh,
hospitals
uh,
before?
no, no.
Okay.
Other than this, I mean, I may be working with this medical group
Okay.
that I was talking about earlier. We shall see, but
Okay. Maybe I could get
because
my dad on to talk about some of this stuff and maybe bring you on with my dad if you're game for something like that. That could be kind
great,
of
love
fun.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Happy
want to
to.
start doing more of these like group interviews too. I think that would be really fun.
That would be fun. Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I've
it'd be
always thought
fun.
like, if like Joe Rogan or Tim Ferriss, if they brought on a few people at a time, if they did more of that. I know Joe
Uh-huh,
Rogan's done that a few times, and I always find those some of the most interesting episodes
uh-huh, uh-huh.
because you get the in between. It's like there's whatever we're saying, but then
Yeah,
if we had another expert with us sharing and we all play into that, it opens something up in the conversation that isn't
yeah,
possible with just two people.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
Neat,
cool.
neat.
Yeah. So
So we do
yeah.
we do a fair amount in and what I do about to really transform their relationship with failure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Turns out we all have pretty well, especially successful people have built-in cognitive biases around failure.
So say more about
Um,
that.
well, I think the term in cognitive therapy is, what do they call it? Oh, where you self-handicap. And then the most predominant one I find amongst ambitious, committed, successful people is there's an already existing explanation for something not turning out before they start it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for people who aren't as successful, the most common self handicap is where they self sabotage.
Yeah.
Like it's the night before my final exam, and I go out with friends and get drunk.
Right.
And then I kick myself. Oh God, why did I do that? Oh, I'm such a dumbass.
Yeah.
So that's a very common one. But the successful people mostly don't do that stuff. But there's a wealth of explanations and reasons because it's all designed to protect our ego.
Yeah.
So failure for a successful person threatens their view of success of themselves. So I've got to protect that with explanation. Oh, well, we gave it a good shot. However,
Yeah.
so anyway, we do a lot of work on that, but more than anything, success, what it took for that successful hedge fund founder who also was a fully tenured professor at a business school, and for him to say, I'm going to, in a very significant way, blow up my hedge fund and start anew. was a big risk and it was
Yeah.
expensive. Now it's going to end up paying off for him big time. I mean, I won't speak about him out of turn, but you know, with he's got a whole new theory of capitalism that's evolved for him now, and a new fund he's opened, and a book contract on the new theory. But it wouldn't have
Hmm.
happened without the you know, I can still remember the day I asked him, well, um, yeah, we were engaged in the question at the end of your life. What do you want to say your life was about? And I asked him, I said, why are you doing a hedge fund? No, really, why?
What do you say?
Silence for at least 20 seconds. And then it was, I don't know,
Hmm.
which was at least honest,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but it really shook him up. But it matched his experience, the experience of, you know, a little bit jaded or maybe a lot jaded, a little bit lethargic, a great life, a great wife, a great, you know, so but mostly his experience of aliveness in life came from he had the resources and money to do these really great things.
Yeah.
He could fly his wife to Vegas because she likes fast cars for her birthday weekend, and they drive on the track in Vegas at 140 miles an hour, and he can do all those amazing things,
Yeah.
which gave the illusion of aliveness. Um, but he was going to be he would he would have been at the end of his life saying, "What the hell was that about?"
Yeah, that's pretty common in the
Yeah,
financial
yeah,
industry. People like that,
yeah.
maybe even more common than not when they get successful.
Probably it's a pretty
And
yeah.
the
That's
amount of
a
times I've seen it is countless.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's a pretty challenging um, project to how do I connect my hedge fund with what I want my life to be about.
Hmm.
Now, but if it was easy, then everyone would do it. Everyone would have a business that's fulfilling their life's purpose.
Yeah.
But, you know, but it mostly ends up about, you know, you end up in one or two camps. You're over here and you're the anti-capitalist, which is just a kind of a joke, you
Yeah.
know. I'm going to well, I'm not anti, but I'm checking out of the game. I'll just go teach yoga on the beach in Hawaii. Okay, that's fine, but you're going to be broke, you
Yeah.
know. Or you're in the force field and it's about the money and about the share price. And so, how do I have those be an outcome, not a goal? An
Yeah.
outcome of living true, an outcome of fulfilling what our real purpose is. Um, and
It's so funny
that's
how
yeah,
I don't want to make this show about me, but it's like it's so funny how much of what you share overlaps with some of the coaching and consulting that I do.
great.
I mean, we just this weekend had a whole thing on outcomes and goals, and actually in 2 days from now, Kira and I are going to be working with a CEO of a company literally on outcomes and goals. That's the whole
Wow.
evening. So it's so interesting the overlap between what we're doing.
Yeah, that's great, and that's such a fine distinction and
Hmm.
simple, and yet it's life changing. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
even things where um a few I don't know, couple months ago, I guess it would have been right after we met up in Arizona. I think I was doing a program like the week after or something like that, or
yeah,
2 weeks
that's
after.
right. You were, yeah.
And there was a guy talking about a startup that had failed, that he had started and his startup failed. And we were just looking into, most startups fail. And one of the things that came out of that conversation that we discovered is that it's not inherently because they're a startup. And most startups are coming with it with, we have some goal we want to do, and they're not thinking outcome based. So he was talking about it, how, I don't even remember what the business was doing, but they needed a contract with either Walmart or Target. So they spent all their time on trying to get this contract with Walmart or Target. And when they didn't get the contract, they spent so much time doing this, they ran out of money. And I go, so what was the outcome you wanted to produce? And they're like, well, we want to get a sales, some sales contract with a retailer. And I go, so was, like, why would you spend all your time on two companies? Like, maybe you should have made a list of 500 companies, made sure you had the money to reach out to all of them. And if only one of them hit, then you had a business.
Right.
But they weren't thinking like that. It was just, we want to focus on, so maybe spending time with Walmart and not Target isn't going to actually get the outcome you wanted.
Right.
In this case, the outcome was you ran out of money and went out of business, which is not what you wanted.
Right.
People don't think like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think actually, if you're not thinking outcome based, whether it's this is what I want my life to be about, or here's a business outcome I want to produce, you don't even know if the actions you're taking are necessarily in line with what you're committed to.
Right. Well, this is, when you look at what people are given in business as a intellectual, philosophical, conversational framework to engage and then conduct business with. So you definitely have what's predominant in the business schools.
Yeah.
Which much of it's very useful, the distinctions in finance and accounting and whatnot.
I'd say more in accounting than finance, but
yeah. And other than that, what's out there is mostly a conglomeration, from what I can tell. I mean, if you just look at what's promoted and what's sold, there's a mix of truisms built up over the years. You need to think outside the box and like those kinds of things, or positive thinking, don't give up, outwork your competition. If you believe in your dream, you can do it, which, that was a necessary and incredibly powerful paradigm
until it became dogmatic.
Yeah, well, like any field of thought, it's got a half-life to it. That was in the age of labor, and the age of entrepreneurship of 80 years ago, when that came to be, and then you ended up down the line with Zig Ziglar and who was the original
like guys like that?
Napoleon Hill.
Yeah. Dale Carnegie.
Yeah, exactly. But that's outdated. I mean, this in the current era, when someone can get an account on Squarespace and put up a website in a week, and they're competing with you and me, just like that, without any investment, capital, anything. It's, that thing, no, and that's why I think I said at the beginning, knowing how to work hard is a necessary skill. And some people fail in business because they actually haven't developed that kind of grit where they can, push through some seemingly immovable obstacle.
Yes.
But if that's your only answer, I mean, you're just going to suffer. I mean, you might be successful, but you're going to suffer because what you're going to sacrifice to live that life. And I know, because I was actually living that one, president of the work 70, 80 hours a week club.
Big following there.
Yeah, that's right.
It's a big group.
Right. Yeah, that's right. So that's what you were just pointing to there is, I call that uncommon knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And mostly what traffics the coin of the realm in the business world is common knowledge. And I don't use common in a pejorative way there. It's just, it's common. It's everyone else has it's the latest business book. It's the latest, thing that's popular. It's
Mm-hmm.
but the people who are able to create unique businesses and do business in a way that is true to what they want their life to be about, that's all uncommon knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, anyway, so yeah,
They're both useful. I'd say they're both useful though.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't need my accountant to utilize all uncommon
Yeah.
knowledge. That's a lot of really, I want an expert in the common, although a good accountant's going to have some uncommon
Yes.
stuff too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Something they can see that's unique to me and my business that creates an opening, a advantage, a benefit.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Hmm. So interesting.
Yeah.
So what's this?
Yeah.
So this new website you said you were building that's more customized
Yeah.
for. So how is that different than what you do right now, or is it the same
Well,
thing?
it's similar. So
Okay.
there's definitely some overlap. So what I'm doing now is a year-long course for individuals
Mm-hmm.
of any profession or business. And this new offering is where we actually work in an organization with the team.
Okay.
Um,
And how is that structured?
it's customized,
Okay.
so depending on the size of the team.
But you certainly have some input.
Yeah,
If they
yeah,
say, come
exactly.
for 20 minutes once a week, you'd be like, well, I can't get anything done in 20 minutes.
That's right.
Right.
That's
So,
right.
so
So,
in your
we're
in your perfect world, what does it look
in
like
our
structure?
perfect world, it's a minimum 6-month engagement,
Okay.
probably a total of 6 to 10 days over those 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
and it would involve a um, completing of their past. So, or in other words, taking the limits and constraints of their past success, including some failure, but mostly
Of the companies.
success, yes,
Okay.
of the company, out of their forward vision, so they can actually reimagine what the hell they are doing. And then from there, they co-create with their key members on their team. They actually co-create a new vision, promises, commitments,
Yeah.
strategies, goals. So they're sourced from the initial purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
See,
mean,
where
we
I
found one.
feel, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just, the last thing was one of the most common complaints we've heard from business leaders, especially founders, is, if only I could get my team to see it the way I see it. If only I could get my people to feel the mission the way I feel it, you
Yeah.
know. Um, so that's a that's a that's a big part of what this is. Yeah.
Have you thought about um, introducing this work into business schools?
I haven't.
See,
I'm not against it,
yeah,
but
I wish my like biggest wish for this industry of people, because there's lots of really interesting people doing great things, is get studies done. However, you make that happen, and then share that with academia, because
yeah,
in the academic world, my experience is if you don't have a study, it doesn't exist for them.
right, right,
But you give them study after study, and they go, "Hey, look, you can teach something very innovative, and your students will love it. And here's the data." It's a
right.
lot easier to digest, and
Yeah,
it makes it much more socially accepted too when it's in academia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe not as fun, it's like
Yeah.
if you have to go through all the bureaucracy, but I feel like 20 years of you leading a program would have less impact in terms of social acceptance than 1 year of Sloan doing something.
Yeah. Right. Right. Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think about, this is something I go back and forth with all the time. Well, first let me ask you a question. Would you say there's definitely psychological benefits from people going through, transformational experiences typically? Like generally happier,
Yeah.
more, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe maybe I'm living in a bubble, so this is just anecdotal, but in my experience, people who are trained psychologists tend to be so disconnected from this kind of thinking, which has
Yeah.
always blown my mind because I've always assumed, like, why is there still people working on their confidence issues for 5 years in a therapy room
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
when that shouldn't really be much of an issue? And like, I don't know, I it just seems like
Yeah. Yeah.
that's always been a big disconnect for me. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Well, uh, I have a couple. So, and this is part of why the work done at Landmark is so impactful, is because it it looks at our existence and our life in the most fundamental way. So, I mean, from the model of the forum, where we look at a human being, of what is it to be a human being, not what is it to be you, what is it to
Yeah,
be any human being, and that includes you.
right.
And it's an inquiry that, well, no one asked me that question, but you actually inquire and you start to see fundamental, oh, well, one of the things it is to be a human being is I'll sell out my life to be right. I'll be right at any cost. And and you're there in the room with these other people and you've looked, and part of why you're doing it with them is because you see it in them. Oh shit, that's just like me.
Yeah,
And you discover, wow, I've sacrificed a lot of relationships in my life to be right. God, I'm doing that in my marriage, right? So you see that and you see, oh, what it is to be a human being is we create stories about everything constantly, all day long. And then we live like our stories are what happened. So I say, well, I was on the phone with Eric the other day and he wasn't listening like he always does. And I don't see, no, that's your interpretation of the call with Eric. That's not what happened.
yeah,
We all do that. So anyway, it doesn't matter what profession you drop into the being of a human being. And in this case, um, psychiatry or psychology. I had this, I had in the forum once this very renowned, I can't remember if he was a psychologist or a psychiatrist. He was published and he had neared the end of his career, a 40-year career at a major university. He was the chair of the department and he was doing the forum because he was profoundly resigned.
hmm
And he shared about it in the forum publicly. He said, I dedicated my whole life to this work, to these distinctions of psychology, because in my view, this is what would elevate humanity. And he said, I am at the end of my career, and what I see is most people are using psychology to be a victim, to be right, to
hmm
win, to justify, um, so that's the first thing I point to. It's like, well, you give a human being really powerful distinctions, like the distinctions of psychology. And there's some powerful shit in there.
Yeah, extremely.
Yeah, but you put it in most human beings' hands and they use it to protect their ego.
Yeah.
They use it to justify and so on and so on. And the second thing I'd point to is if we think of the the norm is mediocrity, there's a lot of mediocre therapists out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And now that doesn't mean they don't contribute and do some good. This sounds terrible, me talking like this, because it seems like I don't include myself in it. And I think that's part of what's useful is something you were mentioning earlier about intense focus on to get at least one thing you're going to be great at,
Yeah.
not just mediocre. Um, and at the same token, there's some, I've come rather late in life to see a distinction between transformation, which is what most of what my life's been dedicated to, and healing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's therapists out there who do healing work that's necessary and it's magical.
Yeah.
My wife is one of those people, and she's gifted. I run into people that I send to her that,
She's
in
a
fact,
psychologist?
therapist.
Therapist, okay.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if she'd consider herself as it's. I mean, it's a degree.
I mean, you have a degree in psychology, right?
No,
No?
they have different. I mean, her
Is it? Okay.
master's degree is in, I think, counseling, masters of
Okay.
counseling.
Got it.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
but some unbelievably powerful distinctions, and yet if I'm using those distinctions just to propagate my story,
Yeah.
or to continue my view of having been wrong,
Mm-hmm.
or if it just leaves the past in my future, but it's all explained now, it doesn't free me up,
Yeah. That's like
So
with any, I think, body of work. If you start using it as almost like a tool in
right,
some sense, you can destroy the power of it.
yeah,
Almost like if you discover some truth and then you decide you're going to now use it for something,
yeah, yeah.
and it's
Well,
almost
someone sent me the other day, a friend of mine thought I would get a chuckle out of it, which I did, this picture of a Buddhist monk in an orange robe. They were in Thailand or
yeah.
someplace, angry, giving the finger in at some car in traffic, some it's
Yeah.
like, so, and that's why the work of Landmark is so, and others, is so darn impactful, because psychologist, Buddhist monk, whatever the case is, there's still our own humanity,
Yeah.
um, and finding a way to. I mean, I don't think anyone ever gets to the place where it's all energy of light and love they're projecting, but you
Yeah.
certainly can go from more dark to less dark, you know.
I think you can get quite a shift.
Yeah, yeah.
But
um,
you could say you can never fully transcend your humanity, but you can
right,
certainly move that shift,
yeah,
that
yeah.
the baseline.
I mean, I used to tell people in the forum that I'm crystal clear the biggest asshole in the room is. So if someone, yeah, and it was me, because
Yeah.
you know, I mean, I never run out of finding my own innumerable stupidities, or times I wasn't compassionate, or times I didn't listen, or times
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't present, or times I was thoughtless, So, um, but yeah, anyway,
Yeah.
interesting question. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
curious. We were talking earlier before we started the show. So you started 75 Hard,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and I asked you how that. Where did you discover that? So you heard it from, I guess, me sharing about
That's
it
right.
to you,
Yeah.
or on Facebook, or
I think I saw it on Facebook,
okay,
one of your posts. So I'm kind of always looking for the something to challenge myself, especially
by the way, I
my
discovered
own.
it through interviewing someone on my intelligent investing podcast.
Oh, cool.
Someone shared about it,
Interesting.
and
Yeah,
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 so
yeah. I've shared about, I think I have a couple people about to start it just from talking about
that's
it.
funny.
So it's good. Yeah.
So how
Um,
how deep into it are you right now?
I'm 2.5 weeks in.
And have you had any days where you fucked up, or has it been consistent?
No, but it's been challenging. I mean, last
Yeah.
night I was finishing my second workout at 10:30 p.m. That wasn't fun,
No.
but um,
What do you do
you
for
know
your
that
outdoor workouts?
uh, let's see. Well, given I'm in Arizona,
Just walk?
all of mine have been outdoors so far. But
Okay.
I was already doing stuff outdoors,
Okay.
especially from COVID.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
stopped going to the yoga studio and the gym, and I'd already adapted. So that isn't a challenge. More of a challenge where you are when you get in the wintertime and so on. So
Yeah.
that's
Well, or the
that's
biggest challenge was doing this on a 3 of those weeks on a road trip.
oh yeah, yeah, that
You
would
know,
be if you're
when it's 2, 3 in the morning, you're exhausted and you're
yeah,
walking for 45 minutes in an underpass in the middle of New Mexico at a gas station where it's pouring rain, kind of sucks.
yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. But
So
that's the, that's part of what piqued my interest is just the challenge of my own discipline and my word
has it done
over
it? Has it?
circumstances, comfort.
Yeah, I mean, has it? Have you noticed anything so far for yourself from doing it? I mean, you're still early into it, but
Let's see. Uh,
you could also
I
be like, I've
haven't
gotten
seen
nothing out of
anything.
it too. I mean, you could say that.
No, no, no. I
Yeah.
haven't seen anything like a epiphany or something. But
Hmm.
I got plenty of time to go with that.
Yeah.
Although I'm seeing and experiencing a elevation in my own uh, self-worth,
Okay.
which I shouldn't say always, but for quite a while now, thought that was very connected to the level at which you honored your word versus comfort and
Hmm.
circumstances.
Yeah.
So, and it's an interesting paradox, isn't it? Because I want to give people an access where they see that hard work is not the answer, but at the
Hmm.
same point, you got to do hard stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to look for challenges. You got to take shit on,
Yeah.
um,
Are
which
you
is very
aware?
different.
Jeff? Are you
Yeah.
aware? See, I was not aware when I did this. Are you? Oh, first, are you using the app, the 75 Hard app, to do this?
No,
Okay, it's
no.
like five
I did.
dollars on the iTunes store or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And it just helps
Yeah,
you keep
yeah.
track of stuff. Yeah, I like
Okay,
it
that's good.
personally.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Um.
I didn't know there was an app. I'll have to check into it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just using a journal for each day, and
Yeah.
I
I mean,
write it all
whatever works.
down and highlight. Yeah, yeah.
So this is the fucked up part. So, are you aware that there's more to 75 Hard than just the 75 days?
Uh-huh.
You are. Okay. See, I wasn't, right?
That's the part two.
So it's
Is
Live
that?
Hard. It's a year-long challenge.
Oh yeah, I just knew there was a part
Yeah. Yeah.
two,
So I'm using the app, right?
and
And I'm on my 75th day. And I've already been sharing like my psychological baseline. I'd say maybe about a month into it, right? So maybe actually more. It's probably like in the 40s, in day 40 something. I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
remember exactly what day, but probably in the 40s, right? And I noticed just my general overall like psychological baseline has significantly improved. Like I just feel like I'm a badass motherfucker, and
yeah,
I don't have to say it, and I just feel it. And I kind of just knew, okay, this is a new baseline. This isn't like going away once I'm done. Like there's something that's shifted internally. And when they call it a mental toughness challenge, it's like, oh, I get it now. This is no going back. And if I lied to myself, if I didn't actually do it, I would not be experiencing this right now. Because Andy Frisella says you can lie and go through the program and do it your own way, and no one will know except for you. But if you ever meet anyone who's done the challenge, they'll know you didn't do it. You can tell. You can tell the people that have done it who've pretended they did it. And so I'm on day 75, and I clicked like the final thing. I think it was, I don't remember what it was, but I clicked the final thing, and I'm like, I'm done. And then the thing says, get ready for phase 1. I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, I didn't know about this, right? Like, at least tell me. Like, so I look at what phase 1 is, and it's where have you looked into what the requirements are for phase 1? You have, right? With the 5-minute cold.
The one that stood out was the cold shower.
Oh yeah. Part. So so you do the cold shower, and it's like, holy shit, I have to do everything from 75 hard plus a cold shower plus a 10-minute visualization exercise, which actually wasn't hard because I do that anyway. But there's like other stuff now to it, right? And you do that for 30 days. And then, so I just finished phase 1 a few weeks ago. And it was tough. I mean, it was really tough, especially the cold showers that took some getting used to. And the cold showers, you do it so it's painful. Like, you don't do it where it's easy. Like, you want it to be, like, if you're not having a hard time breathing by the end, you like can't wait to turn it off, you're not doing it properly.
Right.
So finish phase 1, and it says, okay, 30-day break. And then after 30-day break, you do phase 2, and then there's phase 3, which is done 30 days before the end of the year. So if you fuck up phase 3, you have to start the entire year over again, because you have to finish the program in a year. And what I've noticed is doing the break, it's like I'm looking forward to phase 2. And I'm actually trying to figure out ways to make it harder on myself. Because if I did phase 2 the way that I did 75 hard, I'd be like piece of cake. Where if I knew about the entire program before I started, I probably never would have even started, because it would have actually seemed like almost impossible. Like, there's no fucking way I'm going to do this for a year, and 75 days is like hard enough. So but the break's interesting, and I'm starting to see like why they give you a break, because it's not like, I did eat a slice of pizza the day after, but then after I was like, okay, I'm content with my slice of pizza. And, I've been doing cold showers almost not every day, but it's been 80% of the time. I'm still like torturing myself with a cold shower. It's like, why am I, this is great. So it's just interesting to see how, even when you're not in the program or you're still in the program, but when you're on your break, you still start taking a lot of these behaviors on naturally. I still do. I'm working out 5 days a week instead of 7 days a week, and I'm setting my timer for 45 minutes. And I'm not necessarily making it hard on myself, but I'm doing a nice 45-minute workout. So it's really cool. That, I think you're in for a treat psychologically, I think.
Well, I remember I read some study a while ago of they had people taking cold showers in the morning, and then they had a control group that wasn't doing it, and they found that people doing the cold showers accomplished more during the day.
So interesting you say that. So one of the things with phase 1 is you have to do these power tasks. So you do 5 power tasks and 3 additional critical power tasks. And those just become easier too with doing the cold shower in the morning.
And that's the ontological part. I mean, it's not the cold shower per se. I mean, what the hell does that have to do with anything? Like, and that's one of our biases in our brain, is we look for simple cause and effect like that, but you start to know yourself as someone who's unreasonable, who can do hard things, who can And,
I
so,
will say though, the dopamine hit you get from a cold shower doesn't
oh,
hurt.
that's true. That's true. I mean, you probably have read some of this Wim Hof guy.
Yes, I've read a lot.
Interesting
Or
character.
even go to
Yeah.
like there's a the Lacuna Kava bar, which is in Arizona. I think it's in Phoenix.
Oh,
Uh,
really?
yeah, if you they sell kratom there too.
Uh-huh.
Have a few cups of kratom and then get some work done. You'll be
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
say you need it, but
Yeah.
it
That's
doesn't
right.
hurt to have the psychological
That's
chemical
right.
benefit.
You creating a environment and architecture in your day where you're getting more dopamine
Yeah.
versus cortisol makes a difference,
Sure. Look, I like
Yeah.
what Tim Ferriss says, where he's very into psychological compliance. So he goes, yes, you should work hard, keep your word, all of that. But if you can make it easier for yourself to stick to something,
Right.
then do it. So in my first experience with this was, Tony Robbins talks about this too, where it's if you can associate something with like the pain it will cause you if you don't do it, right? Like it's a much bigger motivator to avoid pain than it is to get something pleasurable, and they've done
Yeah.
studies on that. So
Interesting,
there's
huh?
a
Yeah.
there's a website that I discovered through Tim Ferriss called stick.com, which it's like STIKK.com, and it's a betting website where you do these like it's called an anti-charity. So basically what you do is you set a goal for yourself, right? Or some outcome you want to produce. It could be like, I want to get 10 clients for my business and by next month, or I want to have a 6-pack in 90 days, or whatever it is. And then you give them your credit card information, and you have to set an amount that would be uncomfortable to lose. So it's a set amount of money that,
Oh,
so you don't put $20 in, but maybe you put $2,000 in, or whatever it would be for your own net income. That would be not going to make you poor, but it's not going to be comfortable to lose that money.
right.
And
Right.
then you have to give the money to a charity that you really hate. So,
Uh-huh.
if you're
NRA or something. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
Or
That's right.
get NRA or an abortion charity,
That's
or
right.
you
That's
give it to
right.
like
Pro-life.
the
Yeah.
House Conservative PAC or the House
Yeah. Yeah.
Democratic PAC, whatever, right? Something that'll just give you a viscerally negative emotion to it. And then once you set it up, then they it's optional, but they highly suggest that you have a judge. So it'll be just a neutral person who, if you don't get the result, they can attest to it. And if they do get the result, then they can contact Stick and say you did the result, and then the transaction gets declined. But if they don't hear from the judge, then it automatically goes through after the set amount of time.
Wow. Cool.
And I did that twice with 2 goals that were really
Uh-huh.
like really really hard. Accomplished them both times because I was in that frame of mind for like 60 or 90 days of holy shit, I don't want to give $1,000 to this
Yeah.
charity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I see 75 hard like that too. It's like you're
Yeah.
increasing the psychological baseline for yourself.
Yeah.
I think there's no shame in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Neat. Neat. I'm gonna
Yeah.
have to check that out.
Yeah. Who
Stick.
are some other, you're very well connected. You network a lot, talk to a lot of people. Who are some other interesting people doing some interesting stuff right now in the world that have been fascinating you? In the world of transformation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my colleague and good friend Richard Condon.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we do work together, but then
Yeah.
one of the ways we've arranged our collaboration is so we each have space and freedom to do our own personal things. And he's doing amazing work empowering um, plant medicine tribes.
Okay.
and
Interesting.
and bringing psychedelics into the mainstream, and that's
Huh.
been an enormous contribution to
Well,
me.
speaking of Tim Ferriss, that's his like number one thing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, another great book, Stealing Fire, and
Okay.
also one I'm just finishing, How to Change Your Mind.
I've read that one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Great book.
great. But that was my own personal experience too. I mean, Richard's worked with this temple in the Amazon, which was founded by this British guy
Mm-hmm.
uh, who, you know, life was a disaster, and he ended up in the Amazon going through some plant medicine ceremonies and ayahuasca with the Shipibo tribe there, which are, they've generations and generations of where this has been passed on. And so he ended up founding this temple to make plant medicine available to Westerners. So,
Oh, cool. I've heard amazing things about ayahuasca. Like every single
oh,
person I know who's done it has an amazing experience.
hey, we could do a whole 2 hours, me just talking about, I've done nothing. I'm not a weed guy or
Mm-hmm.
anything. I've just never had any interest.
Yeah.
And Richard invited me there, and I went.
I
Just
didn't either until I went to Colorado on my road trip.
yeah,
I
yeah,
was smoking blunt. I was literally just like, I went through 2 blunts in like a morning and just like smoking on the street, walking
uh-huh.
around, just high
Wow,
as fuck. It was
wow.
fun though.
Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
the in terms of giving ourselves access to get outside of our own ego,
Yeah.
it's pretty. I mean,
There's been so much data on this now, even with
the evidence is
LSD and
pretty
ketamine.
overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, what do you
So
think about? Maybe this would be a question for your partner. Maybe I don't know, but you. But you ever know those like when people do like ketamine and they see those like little elf people? Do you know what I'm talking
yeah,
about?
I don't,
Oh, it's so
but
weird. It's like all
uh-huh,
these cultures, right? They
uh-huh,
they they do
yeah,
they do the ketamine, and it's one of the common things that people experience is like they shoot out of their body, they go to this like other like universe, they meet these. I know it sounds crazy, but it's like they meet these little elf people, and they're sometimes they'll talk to them, sometimes they won't, but they're always like really tiny and small, and they always say like, "Oh, we've been expecting you, we've been waiting for you, and we're gonna like teach you some secrets of the universe," and like they teach them a little wisdom, and then like they leave.
uh-huh,
And it's like this happens with these exact same little
uh-huh,
tribe, no matter the culture. And
interesting.
it's like I wonder if this is like a legit, if these were actually like
Uh-huh.
some weird beings that exist in a different plane that we
Interesting.
can't.
I don't know. I haven't heard of that. I haven't studied
Oh,
that enough
you
to.
should
Yeah,
one
yeah,
night if you're bored, just spend a
yeah.
night going
Uh-huh.
down a rabbit hole of that. It's some crazy
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
But I've always wondered, like, maybe this is not a good analogy. I'm a so just for full disclosure, I'm a dumbass when it comes to any of this stuff. So I have no idea what I'm talking about. This is just something
Yeah,
I've thought
yeah.
about. Right? So you could probably have some expert on it, be like, yeah, Eric's an idiot. That's no idea what he's talking about. But if like our brains could almost be looked at as like radio receivers, right? Where it's like,
Uh-huh.
when you have creativity and you almost feel like something's like coming to you, right? But then maybe there's all this other parts of reality that we can't experience or see, or what other, right?
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
sonar. We don't have sonar, for instance, but we know that exists, right? Or whatever wavelengths are there that dolphins can pick up that we can't pick up on, right?
Right.
And I know like they've done these studies with dogs where, before they poop, they like go in circles before they poop. It's always like in a certain like degree where the sun is. I don't know. There's something that they're
Wow.
like picking up on, and
Wow.
it's 100% of the time the dogs all do the same thing. I don't remember
Uh-huh.
if it's a
Wow.
gravitational pull or whatever it is. So clearly there's
Yeah.
other experiences that are out there that human beings don't have access to. And I've always wondered, like, say someone who's schizophrenic, if maybe some of those things are real.
Mm-hmm.
They've shown some schizophrenics have larger pituitary glands.
Yeah.
That maybe having an abnormally large pituitary gland has you pick up on things that are not really conducive for our survival. They might, right? If you were picking up on every little thing, it might be a distraction and you wouldn't be able to get anything done. So
Yeah.
I always wonder if some of these things that people experience, if they are real, and there's a real good evolutionary reason why this is not something we pick up on all the time.
Mm, mm.
No.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean,
Interesting.
yeah. Have you ever thought about any of that, or?
Yeah, some. I was just reading this week how there's growing agreement amongst the scientists who study evolution that it's a lot more random
Mm-hmm.
than Darwin originally proposed. Although he had plenty of room for random experimentation, but
Yeah.
in the common knowledge way of looking at it, it's like this intelligent selection. But now there seems to be pretty widespread agreement. A lot of it's experimentation and oh, that didn't work. So what? No, that didn't work either.
Yeah.
Um, so it seems pretty clear to me in my own personal experience
Mm-hmm.
that there's a whole lot more consciousness available to each one of us and different that has us access different planes and different dimensions than we're aware of. you
Yeah.
know
Or
I
whatever it is,
mean,
dimension, or whatever you want
yeah,
to
I
call it.
mean, and there's too many people who are, they don't even have any kind of what would be a mentally diagnosed schizophrenia or something. There's too many people who see auras or see
Yeah.
visions or experience spirits, or to say, oh, crazy, crazy, crazy.
Yeah. I
No.
mean, you could the argument though, right? The argument against that would be that we are evolutionary wired to experience, those kinds of things, and that's where religion comes from, and there
Yep,
was real
yep.
real
Hmm.
cultural need for that, as hunter gatherers, and if we can do burials and ways to come together, that helps build community, which has helped the human species survive. That would be the argument, against a lot of that being real.
Yeah, yeah.
you know
Um,
then there's other things too, where if you're someone who um so actually in college I took a very interesting class. It was on like paranormal experiences, and I kind of did it as like a bullshit class, like, oh, this is an easy A. And the guy who was teaching it, he's like been on TV shows to like do paranormal investigations and all that. So I just assumed he'd just be like pushing an agenda, like to get us all believe that like Bigfoot and UFOs were real and whatever, right? But most of the things he had us study, I would say most people in the class came to the conclusion that most of it was bullshit, which I wasn't like not expecting that it would come from this
right,
guy at all.
right.
Um, and what it's like, one of the things I remember discovering is like, if you already are into paranormal shit, right? Like you're already like, I don't know, like you're a ghost hunter. Let's use the extreme example. Like your life's about ghost hunting, right? You're gonna start looking for patterns and finding things, and you think you heard a voice, where like the average person would be like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And you can play these like little, I forget what the name is, like in EFP or something like that, where you think you hear like someone saying something. And the thing is like they've done these experiments where you're like, yeah, the person's saying hello, come here, and then you listen to it, you can hear hello, come here. But if you show someone the sound bite, but you don't tell them what you're supposed to hear, 10 different people will hear 10 completely different things.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So there's
Wow.
there's that too.
Cool. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I don't know the answer.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, interesting. Anything else that we've covered a lot? It's almost been 2 hours. Anything else interesting that you want to leave people with before we finish up,
Huh, anything interesting? I
or
don't know
just
about
anything you want
that.
to, or anything you just want to leave people with?
Well, I've been on probably my overriding project this year has been to expand my capacity to live open-heartedly.
Mm-hmm.
Because I found this interesting thing that I was very competent in being open-heartedly in my public uh, profession. and my engagement with clients and so on. And it was more challenging personally with my own kids and the people I'm close to and close friends.
I feel like that's everybody though.
Well, yeah, maybe, but I got to start with me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, anyway, that's been I just, but part of what I think why I want to end with this is just, it's to take oneself on at whatever the next thing is just enormously gratifying. I am a better human being out of it, you know. And
Yeah.
I've ended up engaging in stuff. There were complete blind spots I never looked at before, times of loneliness and fear and shame and, you know.
What's one example, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, just early on in life, I've got I have a identical twin brother that we were in business together with, that I mentioned earlier, and he and I
Yeah.
have been best friends our whole life. And according to everyone who was around when we were young, we were inseparable. And yet there was a stage of my life when I was young, when my parents split up, that I have zero memory of him. None. It's like he wasn't even there.
Huh.
And my only conscious memory is of being alone,
Hmm.
like profoundly alone with no one to turn to and no answer and da, da, da. And then seeing how this played out in my life and in my intimate relationships, where I was constantly protecting myself from that aloneness, you know. Anyway, I just there's always the next opportunity for us to grow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been just it's been surprising and enormously gratifying to grow in that way. And I'm already looking at what will I take on in 2021 in a personal um, dimension like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Very cool. Jeff, it was a pleasure having you on. Always fun to
always,
connect.
always great chatting with you, my friend.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, have a good rest of your day. And then I wish
You
you,
too.
tremendous success with, all your projects.
Right on.
Thank you. Take care.